Welcome back to Open Your Eyes. We're moving now into our second segment for the morning. Now, this one,
yes,
the story never.
You don't say it wrong. You don't say it wrong. Stop.
April or something else, right?
If the pin never bend, the story never ends.
So the pin bend.
The pin bend.
So the bent pin.
Yeah.
It's all about Bent Pin Press, a new literary journal publishing, and you know what? We're looking forward to it. We're hearing all about these, old stories that are actually being compiled now in a book, and it's right here in front of us as we speak. Issue number 1. Yeah. Andre Habet, who is the assistant editor, is actually on the screen. He's upon Zoom.
Yeah,
and then hey,
relax.
And also in with us is actually Samantha Singh.
Yes.
She is the editor-in-chief of Bent Pin Press.
Yes, you have to say it slow, because
you're a tongue twister.
It is a tongue
Thank you so much for having us.
Good morning and welcome,
Good
guys.
morning.
Good morning and welcome. Bent Pin Press. How did we get there? That name, at least. We are getting at the nitty-gritty of the bashment, But how did we get a Bent Pin Press?
For the name, I think that it really came from what you referenced. If the pin never bend, the story never began. And because when we were coming together about a name, we were thinking that the Anansi stories are one of the first stories that Belizeans might have been introduced to.
Yeah.
In terms of literature, the first literature that they've ever been truly interested in.
Yeah.
So we wanted a name that spoke to the Belizean literary scene without being too heavy-handed. So I think that's how we arrived at that.
So let's get into the history of this. Again, Samantha, this is definitely, because growing up, we read all these stories or we heard about all these stories. So let's talk about how we got this compiled. Where did the idea come from?
Well, to be honest, it's been a long time dream of mine for there to be a place for Belizean writers to aspire to have their work published. And I know there are a couple journals in the country, in no way, undermining their existence. It's just I didn't find any that I, as a writer, would feel comfortable submitting to. There wasn't open submissions. It was more soliciting writers that have, people are aware of them, reaching out to them directly. So to offer an open call for submissions to our writers to allow them to come forward with work that they think is worth sharing was really important to me. And so that's the idea behind the book. But we opened last year, and anybody in Belize or the diaspora was allowed to submit. And out of those, we had a democratic system where our team voted on what should be included, and we whittled it down to, I believe, 18 pieces for this issue. But that's really the process. That's really the process.
You mentioned that you selected, like handpicked, right? What was the process like? How did you come to pick these fine writers as part of the first issue?
It was by no means an easy choice. I mean, we received over, I think, 200 submissions individually. So to parse through those and find 18 that were, that fit together and that represented our literary scene in a positive way, it was no small feat. We were selecting up until the last minute, really, going back and forth with our team, discussing which piece is going to make it and which piece is going to make the cut. But it was a very long process. Lots of Excel sheets, lots of
So what makes these writers so special for the first issue? I guess Andre could kind of jump in on that one.
Dre, jump in.
I love that.
What makes these writers special? That's a good question. I don't think anything makes these writers special, to be honest. And I'm saying that because not to diminish the work, but to say that writing is a work. Writing is whatever time you put into it, how much you try to go in and learn the craft of it and apply those new skills to what you're doing. So if anything, these writers demonstrate the most craft put into their work and the most, and in some cases, Samantha hasn't said this, but Samantha worked with some of these writers to take existing pieces and push them to another level. And you could see in their work that eye of editing that Samantha has that I think really allowed some of these works to get to where they need to be. And I think that's part of what we're doing with this journal, is to show people the craft of writing, that writing is not simply, oh, I feel really emotional right now, let me put them thoughts down into a paper and then, that's it. It's really about going back to that work and being like, okay, I felt this way. How do I make sure that the reader not only reads words that say those feelings, but feels those feelings? And that is the craft of writing. And that is what these pieces demonstrate, is that craft.
Well, what would be the criteria? I mean, after receiving 200 publications or 200 stories, and you need to put that into only 18 or the amount you wanted in the book, what made each of these writers here, their criteria ready?
I think what really stood out to me about the really everybody that we ended up putting in this issue is the content of their stories.
Yeah.
And I think that was the most important to me in the selection process. I have a sort of vendetta against marketing-based writing.
Yeah.
And the way that tends to be the only way the Belizeans are allowed to showcase their writing muscle is by selling us to other countries. So any piece that came across in that way, I think was immediately axed, did not make the cut. But these stories to me were telling truly Belizean stories that spoke to other Belizeans as opposed to people outside of the country. It wasn't trying to share why you should come here to people from another place. It was sharing an experience that only Belizeans would be able to relate to.
Yeah.
Or maybe not only Belizeans, but that Belizeans would be able to relate to.
Yeah.
And like there's one story that we've been talking a lot about, Alkaina Titi, that it's very humorous. It reminds me of David Sedaris, and it's by E.A. Luna, and it's a gender identity story. And that's a story that I haven't seen told in Belize before, and that was one that I did work with him to edit the piece towards something that we would want to see in the book. But it was such a rewarding experience to be able to bring a story like that to the forefront and to be able to move it to a more literary story, to move it to the point where it would be ready to be print. Stories like that, I think, are the kind of stories that we want to share. Truly Belizean stories, and it's been a great experience.
And like your own story.
If we had I don't know.
But
you could jump
if I
in,
could add
Jay.
something,
Yes.
Yeah, please. If I could add something to what Samantha said, it would be that also these stories show a complexity of being a Belizean. I think we have also poems in here that I really want to emphasize that people engage in the poetry in this collection, because a lot of the poems here show the complexity of being a Belizean, navigating this idea of we really want to be proud to be a Belizean, but there's so much going wrong. And we think about the symbols of Belize and just feeling through all of this, and it's just it's a very weighted thing that these these poets make really effortless. I'm looking at the poems of Christopher the Shield in here. There's Jun and Petition. I'm looking at the poems of Abu the Mirgira here. Praise Songs for Belizean Artist 1, Praise Songs for Belizean Artist 2. And these are just evocative of feelings that are not easily memeable, right? They cannot be simplified to something more based than the poem, because the poem is giving it to you at its most potent value.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we really need more of, is showing how you can hold, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the writer John Keats, but he used to talk about this concept of negative negation, negative capability, right? In which you hold two competing ideas at the same time, and neither of them is less true than the other.
Yeah.
And I think we need to be embracing such capacity in our thinking in Belize through art, because I think a lot of times people are like, well, you did this for that, then you're enough of this. It's very binary thinking, and I think overthrowing that binaristic thinking is key to us moving ahead in Belize, and that is what art can do. It shows you it's not either or, it's maybe everything.
All right, sounds good. Like when he was mentioning that, it's like I was actually seeing what he is saying.
Yes.
But guys, how do we drive this to success? I mean, trying to get all these stories together and whatnot definitely wouldn't just go on deaf ears. How do we drive this to success so people could actually really want to get to it?
I think that getting this issue into as many vendors and bookshops as possible internationally is it's a large focus for us, and at least for me, I am going to spend a dedicated amount of time doing so before moving on to a second issue.
Oh, wow.
Because developing the readership for this is really important to me, and one of the one of the pushes to do this was to be able to showcase Belizean work to a broader audience, to an international audience. So that's my top priority. We're reaching out to I've been back and forth with Barnes and Nobles, the contact from them. No promises there, but I do know that we have some smaller bookshops throughout the United States that are interested in carrying us, and that's huge for me. Just to know that it's outside of the country that people are going to be reading this. I mean, we're available online for sale, but I recognize that a standalone online shop is something that you have to know about to seek it out. So as much as we're able to get into brick and mortar stores where people can, stumble upon this with their hands, because it's this work by Yao Ling on the cover.
Yes.
This work is by Yao Ling.
Oh my goodness.
It's so eye-catching.
Yes.
If you see this in a museum bookshop, I would pick it up.
Yeah.
Any plans on putting it in the shelves here in Belize? Yes?
Absolutely,
Yep.
and we are constantly looking for vendors that would be interested in allowing us to place these in their stores. That's really the point that we're at now. I mean, outside of our events that we're planning, the tour that we're planning to be able to get out there, part of the tour is trying to find vendors that will allow us to, host us to share this with people.
Yeah.
I mean, tell us a little bit about your book launch that I know is happening tomorrow.
Oh, the launch tomorrow?
Then the launch tomorrow,
Oh my
Dan.
God. All right.
Yeah, give us a little bit of a scoop on that. I know you can't say everything, but something for our audience.
Absolutely. So Itzana Resort in Placencia has been kind enough to host us for
Sweet.
a filmed segment that we will be doing with a handful of our contributors, where they will be reading segments from their pieces on camera, and that is something that we will have available streaming on our web platforms. But there is also an after party for anybody who's in Placencia.
I know we can't go to Spanish lookout now, John. We have to go to Placencia.
Yeah. And yes, and so there will be a DJ. Me and Andre will be there with books, and it's going to be a great time. It's a literary themed, and Itzana is sharing 15% of their proceeds from their tickets with us directly, so it will be benefiting us.
Man,
And it's open to anybody to come.
It is.
There is
Yeah.
But
one.
the tickets are 6 to 5 US, so 20 Belize of that will contribute to our
Sweet.
event.
Very nice.
Dre, you were going to say something?
No, just basically, the after party is an opportunity for people to meet the contributors who are there, talk about, their pieces if people are interested, but also this is just the start of a lot more events that we're hoping to have. And, the Penguin Press Journal issue #1, this is the start of expanding our already existing literary culture in Belize. I've long been an attendee of the Spoken Word 501 series in Belize, and I've really admired what they've been able to do, fostering community among those folks. And this is just another space, and we just need multiple spaces. We need multiple streams of this. So while I'm excited for Benton Press, I hope this also inspires another team of people to make another thing somewhere else in the country who realize what it takes. And Samantha and I, we both have different we have different experiences in editing, and I'm always happy to talk more so about this process. I have over 10 years of experience in editing, and I've edited now about like 8 different things, and I was just like thinking to myself the other day, like, man, like, yeah, I guess I know how to do this a little bit now. but it's this weird thing that a lot of this information is black box from Belizeans, because we don't really get an opportunity to hone these skills even in school, right? I mean, the first thing I edited was in 6th form in just a little club, and we still got money together to print something and release it out there. So it's possible. You can do these sort of things, and long term, I know that Samantha and I are both interested in not only having a Belizean journal, but having one that is printed in Belize, that we have more and more control over how we create the actual text themselves. Because I'm very much a lover of not only books for what's inside, but I love books as art objects. And I see this as the first of many issues we're going to release that are just going to continue to get better in how we develop it and just make them more alluring objects for people to want to have and share.
Yeah, you know what?
Yeah.
You're totally right. And the more you read about these things, the more you actually want. This is actually bringing people out of their shells. But check this one out. I like this one. Kayla Gentle. All right. This one says, Sibun Street. Listen to me carefully. Sibun Street. A young boy cries out with glee as his ball lands in the canal with a splash. Sounds of gunshot deafening rang out in the distance. We fall to the floor, fear and anger swell in the air as sirens grew louder. The next day, laughter as usual. Life goes on. I love it. You know, I read that a while ago and I was like, man, this actually says something. I actually saw what I was reading.
Yep.
You know, and it speaks to what, you know, what life is in certain areas of certain communities. What do you think of that, Dre?
That's one of my favorite poems in there. I actually just interviewed Kyla the other day for a feature we're going to do next week. And I was talking to her about that piece and how she came up with it, because it really, that piece really hit me, you know, this idea of like, again, the complexity of feeling, you love a space, you are so familiar with it, and yet you recognize how it's flawed, how people get hurt within it.
Yeah.
And again, those two things being true. And I think that's what poetry does so well. It hits you. And you read that really well, by the way. I was nervous when you were reading it. I was like, I hope you read it good.
But so let's get down to the wire, because time is going. So where can I find an issue right now, and how much do I pay for it?
Right now, you can find an issue at bentpinpress.com at our digital bookshop, and it is $30 Belize to purchase. We will also have locations throughout Belize, as we mentioned. I believe one of them is Andre's. We have a place in Bomapan.
My sister's
yes, your
restaurant.
sister's
Eatery,
restaurant. The
Okay.
Eatery in Bomapan is one certain place that we have. We also have Blossom Boutique in Belize City to be able to pick up the book. But we are working on in-person places. Once we launch on tomorrow, once we launch tomorrow, orders will also open for orders within the country, so that you're able to show proof of bank account deposit.
I was going to ask online banking,
Yes.
cash, how do I pay for it?
So that
Okay,
opens
great.
tomorrow, and we're gonna release an announcement on how to do so. But it's the process that I think everybody is used to for online shopping in Belize, where you show proof of deposit, and then we will send out via Tropic to your destination.
Guys, I'll tell you something. $30 Belize for 18 writers and all of these wonderful stories. That's a steal.
That's a steal.
That is a
indeed.
steal for this. So
Great
please,
poetry
please, if you're
and
able
great
to get
stories.
one, get one. Yeah.
That's
I
a
love
great
that.
gift right there.
Yes.
That's what I could tell you.
I want to buy one right now.
Read a piece of read a piece of Belize in there. Actually, not even a piece. Read a whole of Belize in this book. That's what you're actually going to get.
Yeah.
But guys, so tomorrow it's going to be launching. It's going to be at Itzana.
Yes.
You mentioned.
Yes.
Is it going to be inside Biblio?
It is inside Biblio, but
You know it is.
Hey, you don't know the name of my girl. I don't
Everybody
swear.
that John Neva.
perfect
But
place.
it's definitely right. It's the perfect spot indeed. It's going to be for $65 US for you to enter.
Yes,
I think
and
that's
all you can drink.
And, what?
Yes.
Everybody stop the story. You notice?
Yeah, that covers that. The ticket covers entrance as well as unlimited access to the bar, and I believe they have an international mixologist coming in.
Oh, sweet.
for that portion. So.
Shucks, man.
I don't know what to say. You're for the one that know. But guys, we're so thankful that you are able to join us.
Yes.
This is actually a great way to
Great
get things out
initiative.
there.
Yes.
A great way to actually feel Belize. A lot of people would tell you, when I get to a country, I want to taste their food. I want to taste what they've got to drink. But if you want to feel a country, you read our book.
Read their book.
Exactly.
That's the way it is. That's the way it is.
That's a really great sentiment. I mean, I stop travel because I just read. I don't even know
There you
where.
go. There you go. And somebody book there go even tell you about the pigeon there where they put the main street. All right. But guys, thank you.
Thank you both so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having us.
Andre and Samantha and
Bent Pin Press.
My goodness, you can't say that in a Creole.
Can't say it in Creole.
Ben Pin
Press.
Ben Pin Press.
Yeah, on a hard practice. That's not fair. We just the land. But yes, thank you both so much for joining us. Their book launches tomorrow at the Itzana in Placencia. And $30 for an issue.
Yeah.
$30 Belize for an issue. So please go out and reach out to them, get it. If you see it in the store, buy it, because it's your culture.
It's your culture.
You
It's
can
your
relate.
country. Yes. Read
Get
what
it.
we've got to offer.
Yeah.
All right. So we need to go. Thank you guys once again.